What's happening, guys? It's Boxing Lowdown here, and we are now here for episode 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of the Boxing Lowdown podcast here with my dad. What's happening, man? You know, someone said you got to use a different combination next time. They want to see more variety, man. Yeah. No, I know you've got it, man.
You know what I mean? I'm just going with what I know.
How you doing?
This is muscle memory for me. So yeah, I'm doing good. I actually not too long come back from a run. Been running around the Emirates whilst the lockdown's been on and there's been no gyms open. I've been trying to keep myself fit by doing a lot of road work, and trust me, man, it's difficult. So I've been running around the Emirates. Did 10 laps today. May not sound a great deal, but trust me, man, it's quite taxing. But yeah, I'm enjoying it, man. I'm enjoying it. Looking forward though to next week when the gyms open up officially. So yeah, but in the meantime, yeah, just trying to keep myself fit, trying to keep myself healthy. I've been busy at AFTV doing some work with my brother. That's going quite well. So yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, just before we get into the topics of this podcast, with you just bringing it up now about the tier system and everything else, we found out earlier on, was it this week or last week, about the government funding not actually having any funds to use on boxing, which was I was very surprised actually when I saw where the sort of money was going to. What's your thoughts on that before we delve into the topics of today's podcast?
Listen, I thought that was outrageous, man.
Yeah, so did I.
I really was disappointed to learn that. No funds allocated at all. I mean, I think it was Tony Belly and one or two others were quite vocal, and they come out and they said, listen, man, boxing is one of the sports that should be prioritized, if anything, you know what I mean? Yeah. In terms of what it does for people's mental health, socially, you know, all sorts. To see boxing just totally omitted was quite scandalous, really. That's all. Yes. Scandalous, disappointing.
I saw Eddie Hearn.
Amazing, man. I mean, unfortunately, the powers that be never seem to give boxing the credit it deserves or put it on that platform that it should be on. You know what I mean?
Why? Why though?
Well, I mean, it's a working class sport, and you know, it could be that certain people look down their noses at this sport and just overlook it. But regardless of that, man, I mean, to not give boxing anything was, wow.
Some of the sports that I saw, and no disrespect, man, but some of the sports where I saw some of the money was allocated to, I was just like, boy, really? And you're not going to give boxing anything? Like, come on, man. But yeah, very disappointing. I see Eddie Hearn wrote a letter to one of the government officials to try and, like, you know, plead our case for and just say how important it is for grassroots boxing, because it is. I mean, look how many lives boxing has changed for the better. It's like you said, it's scandalous. But hopefully we get something out of it.
Fair play to Eddie for doing that. I'd like to have seen a few more people in the hierarchy of boxing get involved in it as well. And really push for things to change. But yeah, in the meantime, man, yeah, I was outraged at that. Terrible.
Absolutely. But listen, let's jump into it for today, man. And you know what? We're about to approach. We're 2 days away from one of the biggest fights of the year for me. One of the most anticipated showdowns we've been looking forward to. Massive heavyweight showdown. Mike Tyson against Roy Jones, man. This is the one that we're all. Now, I'm talking about, of course, Daniel Dubois and JOYCE, man. This fight for me, I was just on TalkSport just now, actually, just talking about it with Ade. And like you said, I'm just so looking forward to this fight. It just gives me the vibes of Anthony Joshua and Dillian Whyte. And when I say that, I'm not talking about the styles. I'm not even talking about the personalities. But just the fact that we've got two unbeaten British heavyweights going at it, full of ambition. The winner goes on to the next level. The loser has to go and reevaluate. We need to give these guys credit for stepping in the ring against each other when they didn't really have to. Kudos to everybody involved. Kudos to Frank Warren and BT Sport for not putting this on pay-per-view. We've got a great stylistic matchup between these two. And both of these guys are coming to win. And as we've got closer to the fight, I'm seeing a lot more people in the industry starting to lean towards Joe Joyce. At first, it seemed that everybody was like, yeah, Dubois, man, he's going to steamroll him. Joe Joyce doesn't look good on the eye. He's slow, he's this. But as we get closer, I'm seeing a lot more people, such as Adam Booth, such as David Price, and many others as well, starting to lean towards Joe Joyce. So this, for me, has the excitement factor, man. I'm really looking forward to this fight. And we're here. Like we said, we discussed it on a couple of weeks ago of what was the most anticipated fight that we had on our winter schedule, and this was one of them. So now we're approaching the fight 2 days away. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, man, it's a great fight. I'm looking forward to it immensely, as I'm sure you are, and all boxing fans up and down the country. Actually, not just in this country, because on social media, I'm seeing a lot of the American channels really up for this fight as well. And I agree with what you said. It's certainly the biggest domestic heavyweight fight since Joshua and Dillian White all them years back. But you know what? I think this one's slightly more enticing because I think in the Joshua Dillian fight, there was a clear favorite. But in this particular fight, I don't think a clear favorite has emerged. I mean, I think Dubois is still the favorite with the bookies. But then, like you said, a lot of money has been coming in late on Joe Joyce. And I can understand that because you could certainly make an argument for either guy winning this fight. The common consensus seems to be Dubois if it's within the first 6 rounds. And if it goes late into the fight, then Joe Joyce will come into his own. His cardio is legendary. We know he's a tough guy. And he tends to wear guys down, man. Hence the word the juggernaut, you know. But yeah, you know what? I'm so looking forward to this fight. The other so-called fight you mentioned, Roy Jones Tyson. Listen, man, I'm going to keep it 100, man. I've got absolutely no interest in seeing that fight at all.
You're going to watch it. You're going to watch it, man.
I will probably watch it on YouTube, just the highlights. But I have to say, man, I've got no interest in the fight. Those guys should not be anywhere near a ring. And it's an exhibition, so-called exhibition fight. It just does nothing for me, man. I think both of those guys should have been retired ages ago. And in particular, Roy Jones, there's possible neurological issues here, man. He's been severely knocked out in quite a few of his fights towards the end of his career. He should not be entering the ring, man. It's actually quite dangerous for him, especially going in against a puncher like Tyson.
Even considering this is like an exhibition, you know, big head guards, big gloves, not really going to be that sort of fight where, you know, I don't think there's like official judges for this fight. It's sort of like a glorified sparring session to me, but at the end of the day, you're taking punches to the head, aren't you? Regardless.
Punches to the head. You've also got to remember that there's 2 ultra-competitive guys in there. And can you see Tyson pulling his punches and going easy? You know what I mean? I can't see that, man. And if he does do that, then that tells you everything you need to know about this whole event. You know what I mean? No, I've got no interest in that. I think the boxing world should focus all their attention on the real fight going on this weekend. And that is without a doubt Joe Joyce and Dubois. And that's no disrespect to Danny Jacobs and Rosado, because that's an interesting fight also. But this one, man, it deserves a million across the world. It's a genuine 50-50. Although I do lean slightly towards Dubois. But yeah, man, it's exciting. It's interesting. You've got 2 guys, maybe not in their primes, because it could be argued that Joe Joyce could be a little bit past his prime. But so far,
is that because he's 35?
His age, you could argue that he's not at the peak of his powers, whereas Dubois, he's kind of, actually, he's not at the peak of his powers either.
22.
Yeah. So as a heavyweight, they tend to mature later. So there you go. There's another intangible. Both guys, it could be argued, are not at their peak yet. So there you go, man.
When you look at Daniel Dubois, why do you think so many people are considering him the favourite? When you look at Joe Joyce, okay, the first thing people will say is the eye test, like I said before. But when you look at their professional and then their amateur careers, Joe Joyce, he was an Olympic silver medalist. He fought at the elite level in the amateurs. He fought the likes of Usyk and amongst others. As a professional, he's definitely fought better competition than Dubois. And, you know, he's been impressive. He's undefeated and he's got the experience at that high level. So why do you think so many people are just writing Joe Joyce off? Is it literally down to the fact that he looks slow? Because at the end of the day, he looks slow, he looks beatable, but he's clubbing these guys down, man, and you know he's beating these guys into submission. So
Yeah.
what is it? What do you think it is?
I think with Dubois, he's got that combination of youth and power, and he's got that indomitable will. You know what I mean? When he gets in the ring, you always think he's going to win and win impressively, which for 99% of the time he has done, and he just looks unstoppable at the moment. So it's sort of like that old phrase, the unstoppable versus the immovable object. You know what I mean? Which is Joe Joyce. So. Yeah, it's an intriguing matchup, man, because, like I said, Dubois with that power, he's got the power to render a man unconscious very quickly if he catches you right. And he's got very good fundamentals, and he is pretty spiteful in there, man. You know what I mean? He is pretty spiteful. He's trying to get you out of there, you know?
If you're making the case for Joe Joyce, though, you'd look at the fight against Kevin Johnson, and you'll say, look, you didn't blow him out. And then you look at the fight against Richard Lartey. I know, okay, that Kevin Johnson fight was early on in his career. But then against Lartey as well, he got caught a couple of times there. We all saw it. He acknowledges it. And I wouldn't say he wasn't hurt, but he definitely felt it. So if you're Joe Joyce, are you just looking at it like, let me get out of these first 4 or 5 rounds, let me take him into the deep waters, and let me take him somewhere he hasn't been before? Do you think that would be the game plan for him?
Well, you know what? If I was his coach, that would certainly be my tactics. My tactics, I mean, listen, Joe Joyce is not going to move around the ring like a 21-year-old Muhammad Ali, but defense should be a major part of his game plan, at least for the first 4 or 5 rounds. He's got to be sensible, man. I mean, listen, he's going to get hit, but don't present yourself as an easy target for Daniel Dubois. Try and tuck up and be cognizant of what's coming back at you. He's still got to be scoring himself at the same time, so even that will open himself up. But he's got to be a bit for me anyway, he's got to be a bit circumspect in the early rounds, feel his way into the fight, try and draw Dubois' sting, and definitely the game plan has to be to get out those early rounds and to take Dubois into the later rounds and hopefully try and drown it. That's if you're Joe Joyce. Whether he can get there or not, though, that's another.
Well, listen, here's my drawback with Joe Joyce now, flipping it over. I think Joe Joyce, yeah, he's not the most mobile, and he has been hurt too. Remember that fight against Brian Jennings? In the first round, Joe Joyce was hurt from a body shot, man. And he had to kind of fumble his way through that round. I don't know if you remember that, but he's shown that he can be hurt. I guess the good thing for him is that he acknowledges that he could be put down, which is a positive, but he can be hurt and he can be hit. He's not hard to hit, Joe Joyce. And you just think somebody that's going to be like probably a sitting duck to somebody like Dubois in the earlier rounds, because he's not known for his mobile movement. That is where a lot of people are going for Dubois. Well, the ones that have picked Dubois have said the reason why is because Joe Joyce won't be able to get out of the way, particularly in the early rounds, or some of Dubois' heavy leather. And, you know, the guy can punch. We've seen that. So will Joe Joyce be able to survive it? It's an intriguing fight, man. There's a lot of intangibles there for us to go through. But I'm looking forward to it. And I think that is probably the reason why a lot of people are picking Dubois, is the fact that Joe Joyce does appear slow. He doesn't have the best defense in the world. And if Dubois catches him, then, you know, it could be good night.
Well, yeah, I mean, listen, the first thing I would say on that is that these guys are heavyweights, yeah? 15 stone and above. And when you get guys like that, trained athletes, these guys hit one another. It's going to hurt, man. So, you know, we shouldn't be too surprised that he got hurt by Brian Jennings, even though Brian Jennings is not a noted puncher. But these are big, strong, powerful guys. And if they hit you and catch you in the right spots, it is going to hurt. You are going to feel it. Yeah. And I think, to be honest, Joe Joyce has so far displayed a very good chin, not just in the pros, but also in the amateurs, where he had numerous fights. And I've never seen him really in trouble or hurt or anything like that. I know he used to spar regularly with Anthony Joshua, and some of their tear-ups in the gym apparently have been legendary. So I don't doubt his credentials as far as his chin goes, but I think he does risk getting caught early too often. And I think that's what he's got to be wary of. He is going to get hit at some point in this fight, but you just got to hope that, for if you're, you know, in his camp or his fans, that he doesn't get teed off on too quickly. Got to try and have a measure of defense. Now, like, as I said earlier, he's not noted for his footwork, although he is very fit. He's not noted for boxing off the back foot or having the greatest footwork. So in my view, he's got to make sure that he keeps his hands up and moves his head. You know what I mean? Those are going to be the two areas where he's going to focus on as far as defense is concerned. And then, of course, if you can make Dubois miss, then you're going to frustrate him, tire him out. And also you're going to create opportunities to counter. So, you know, I mean, I can see why a lot of people are putting money on Joe Joyce, because they're seeing, and their strategy will no doubt be, if we can get through the early rounds, assert his physical dominance, what we think will be his physical dominance, and his greater experience and stuff like that, then the fight could swing in his favor. And that's what makes, those intangibles are what makes this fight such a, you know, a great view. Prospect, you know what I mean? I can't wait.
I can't wait, man. And you know what as well? The build-up. I've liked the build-up. There's a lot of people out there that's like, oh, these two, the trash talking, man, is not even trash talking. What do you even call it? Because they're not really that blessed in terms of like the way how they, you know, put their words together for promoting fights. But for me, that's what's been like made it so funny for me to watch. Just the way how these two have been throwing their threats at each other, but it's been in such a polite way. I've really enjoyed it. And what do you think about the fact that, first of all, Frank Warren, he does actually promote Joe Joyce as well, but you wouldn't think it when you look at the way how they were on the round table together. So really, even though he's backing Dubois and making it public, it is kind of like a win-win for him. And what do you make of Sam Jones as well? He divides a lot of opinion in boxing. Are you a fan of his?
I wouldn't say I'm a fan, but I've got no problem with what he does. He's basically promoting and hyping up his fighter, which is what he's there to do. I mean, we spoke on the show last week about Bob Arum and Terence Crawford.
Yeah.
Sam, in that respect, Sam Jones is everything that Bob Arum isn't. You know what I mean? He goes out there and he actively speaks for his guy. It's not everyone's cup of tea, but you know what I mean? I quite like what he's doing. Man.
I like what he's doing. I'm a fan of it.
Both those guys, it's funny because both these guys are not what you would call the most fluent or articulate in terms of speaking. They're far from silly, by the way. It's just the way they are. They're kind of introverted guys. But because of the fight is so competitive, they've been able to sell the fight very well because they've just been themselves.
Yeah.
And they've come across as, both of them come across confident. Dubois especially looks very confident, man. His energy is, listen, man, I'm coming to do damage. I'm coming to knock Joe Joyce out. He's made it very clear. And you can see it in his eyes that he really does think he's going to do that.
Yeah.
And Joe Joyce is a bit older, a bit more circumspect, but he seems very confident as well. I mean, he's even said, hasn't he, that, you know, okay, you might hit me, I might go down, but trust me, I will get up and I will stop you. And again, when I look into Joe Joyce's eyes, I get the impression that he thinks that as well. Sometimes when guys are trying to sell fights, you think that, you do sort of think to yourself, well, yeah, it's all hype and, you know, they're doing it to sell the fight. But when you listen to these two guys, man, you do get, there's a definite amount of sincerity there in their words, certainly as far as they're concerned. They really do believe that what they say, they're going to do on the night. And that, again, it's even more intriguing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like you said there, I think that they both really do believe. That's why I'm really excited to watch it, because this ain't just talk. This ain't just like, you know, let me think of an example. When Crawler fought Lomachenko, you knew that Crawler didn't really think he was going to win. No disrespect to him. But you knew, like, he didn't give that sort of feeling to me that he really thought he was going to win. But with these two, I get the sense from both of them that they're expecting to win. Joe Joyce is expecting to walk out of there on Saturday night as the winner, and so is Dubois. And that's why I'm really looking forward to it, man. I think that this is a great showdown, man. But let me just ask quickly about the whole Frank Warren thing. So I wanted to get your opinion on that. Have you ever seen, like, before in boxing where there's a promoter that represents two guys and, like, one of them really does, like, very public in his support for the other? Maybe Don King in the past, but have you seen that before? Where Frank Warren, like, he's literally siding with Dubois, but he does promote Joe Joyce officially. So what do you think the reasons were down to that? Just to help sell the fight?
No, listen, I mean, that phenomenon you speak of did actually used to take place quite regularly back in the day, even before the days of Frank Warren as the promoter. The older people watching this will know, called Mickey Duff. and he regularly used to have the two guys fighting would be managed by himself. You know what I mean? So it's not beyond the pale. This has happened before. I think what's happened with Warren is that he's clearly pushing Dubois because he's a younger and seemed to be the kind of heir to the throne type thing. And then, of course, you've got Sam Jones, who speaks enough for both of them. You know what I mean? So taking on that role of backing Joe JOYCE. So it kind of works well. I think Frank Warren's probably relieved that Sam Jones is there because Sam Jones is fulfilling that role that Frank Warren would have had to have covered. You know what I mean? So it would have placed him in a slightly uncomfortable place if it was just him talking out. But the fact that Sam Jones is there and he's doing a lot of talking, I think it works quite well in that regard. You know what I mean?
Maybe they privately agreed or something like, listen, you back your man JOYCE and I'll back my guy Dubois. You know, like all's fair in love and war, you know what I mean? And, you know, whatever happens, but I'll back my man, you back your man. And, you know.
I mean, even with the PBC guys, Al Heyman, even we don't see a lot of Al Heyman. In fact, we don't see nothing. He doesn't give interviews. But all those PBC fights, they're all promoted by Al Heyman. So the fight, for example, the fight coming up the week after between Danny Garcia and Errol Spence, they're both Al Heyman fighters. So
they are. But I mean, what I mean is, it's like Al Heyman or someone just saying, yeah, I'm siding with Spence in this. I'm going for Errol. Like, even though he promotes Garcia as well. That's kind of what I'm referring to. Like the fact that Frank Warren promotes both, but he's so vocal in his support for Daniel Dubois, is that something that's normal? Like you're saying it's something that happened in the past?
Yeah, I hear where you're coming from, but I don't think it matters too much.
No, it doesn't really.
You've got the promoter, but then you've got Sam Jones, who is, I don't know if he's his manager.
Manager, isn't he? He's a manager.
So, you know, I mean, like I said, Sam Jones seems to be able to talk enough for everybody. So he's fulfilling that role quite nicely as far as Joe JOYCE is concerned, you know. So
let's get a prediction, man, before we move on to our next topic. Let's get an official prediction out there. Someone said I was sitting on the fence earlier, so I'm going to give my prediction. But
you would be sitting on the fence. I think a lot of people are sitting on the fence.
Yeah, I am. I'm trying to think of like an actual round, but I can't. Like, because for me, there's just the two different scenarios. I can see Daniel Dubois kind of just steamrolling JOYCE, and then it becoming sort of anticlimaxy where everyone thought, he just ran through him. But then, like, I could see where Joe JOYCE takes him into deep waters and you know, gets the decision win over Dubois, or even stops him late. So
you can see. Listen, this fight has got so many scenarios that could play out. Who's to know? Maybe either one of them might win on points. Dubois might win on points because, listen, Dubois' gas tank has not really been tested, but that's not to say he doesn't have a gas tank. I mean, he is a very young guy. So you would assume he's got a natural level of fitness that could take it above what Joe JOYCE has got, if you see what I mean. Joe JOYCE is, what, 35, 36 now? He hasn't had a lot of pro fights, but he's been in boxing a long time. So is the wear and tear going to affect him? I mean, so far it hasn't done. But then he's never been in with anybody quite like Daniel Dubois. And similar for Daniel Dubois, he's had, well, he didn't have much of an amateur career, although he was a very good amateur while he was amateur. He's blazed his way through the pros. No one's really tested him yet. He's had moments where in the Latte fight, where, you know, the guy was hitting him back and stuff like that, but he's not really been tested in a hard fight. So we still don't really know how good Daniel Dubois is. He looks the part, but could this be a Nigel Benn, Michael Watson first fight? You know what I mean? When, you know, Nigel Benn came in and he emptied out his load quite quickly and then he faded down the stretch and got stopped. It could be one of them. Or it could be one of them like Nazim Ahmed and Steve Robinson. Remember that one?
Yeah.
People didn't quite know how good Nazim was. But then after the Steve Robinson fight, you were looking at him thinking, yeah, man, this guy's special. Because he did a number on Steve Robinson that night in a fight that a lot of people thought would be competitive. But in the end, it really wasn't. Right, in terms of my prediction, I'm cautiously going for Daniel Dubois. I just think that he's...
early, mid, or late?
horse at the moment, man. I think I'm going for a mid to late stoppage. And I'm basing that on the fact that Joe, despite what I was talking about defense, the one failing that, I mean, people say he's slow, but I don't think he's that slow, to be honest. He puts punches together well. And, you know, when people say slow, maybe he might be slower than a lot of heavyweights, but he does have good timing. What I think is going to be the crucial factor in this fight is the fact that Joe is quite hittable. He doesn't move his head much. He hasn't got great footwork. He does get hit. And I think if you're getting hit by a guy like Dubois, who's a big puncher, I think that could present a lot of problems for Joe. So yeah, if I've got a gun to my head, man, I'm going to go with Dubois, mid to late stoppage. Could be an accumulation of punches, and then he lands that big one and puts Joe out, or the corner might throw in the towel because he's taking too much. I could see one of those scenarios unfolding. But it's funny because I can also see a scenario where Joe could get dropped or hurt early, ride the storm out, and come on like a train, the proverbial juggernaut down the stretch, and either get Daniel out of there or win a unanimous point. You know what I mean? There's so many intangibles, man, that it's a mouth-watering prospect, and I can't wait. Yeah,
I'm going to have to agree. My thoughts was initially a mid, Daniel Dubois midway through. But even saying that, I'm just like, boy, man, my prediction could change as we get closer, because I can't get it out of my head of like the experience Joe Joyce has got, the fact that he's very confident in himself, and like we can't just throw it away. This ain't any guy, like this is a level up from Nathan Gorman. This is, let's just say that. This ain't no Nathan Gorman where, you know, I think Joe Joyce he's the real deal too. Yeah. So
the one thing we are going to know for sure, shall I tell you what we will know for sure when this fight is over, is that we will know exactly how good Daniel Dubois is. Yeah. And that's the thing, we don't really quite know. We think he's the real deal. He looks the part. He talks the part. You know, I mean, his performances have suggested he's the part. But he hasn't been stepped up. This fight will tell us all we need to know about how good he is and how far he can go. And then if he does lose, it's not the end of the world for him. In fact, it's not the end of the world for either of them, to be honest, because I still think even Joe Joyce, if he loses, he could come back from this as well. But especially Daniel Dubois, he has that slight advantage, is that if he loses, he can rebuild his career, much like, remember when David Haye got beaten by Carl Thompson? And
Thompson, yeah.
He came back, remodeled his career, and became a fantastic fighter. So Dillian White did that, yeah. So, you know what I mean? It's not curtains for whoever loses, especially Daniel Dubois.
Obviously, I feel at 35, though, Joe Joyce, if he does lose, it's going to be, like I said on TalkSport, he'll be in the Who Needs Him club. Who's just going to pick Joe Joyce to fight, really, when they don't need to? He's going to have to work his way back up there, isn't he?
But sometimes in boxing, the way it works is, and you've seen this before, when a fighter loses, it can actually make him a more attractive proposition to some of the guys who didn't want to fight him before. So, yeah, listen, unless Joe Joyce was to take a really bad beating, he will still have a future as well, if he wants to, of course, carry on. And Daniel Dubois, like I said, he will definitely carry on if he loses his fight. So I think he does have a slight advantage in that regard. But yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. It's a competitive heavyweight fight for many a year, because even the Joshua Dillian fight, although that was competitive, I mean, Dillian had that win over Anthony in the amateurs. But going into that fight, we knew that Dillian was going into that fight with some injury concerns, and everybody looked at Joshua as the clear favourite. So if Dillian had won that fight, that would have been a massive upset. I don't think you can say that for this fight, because if Joe wins, it will be an upset, but it won't be, you know what I mean, an out of the wilderness upset.
No way.
It was Tyson, you know what I mean? It will be, you said yourself at the start of this show that a lot of people have put good money on Joe Joyce to win. So maybe there's some rumors going around in the gyms and that Joe's been looking fantastic in the gym, and that people are backing him, man. So, yeah, man, can't wait.
Can't wait, man. Can't wait. And like I said, on the night, we do have other boxing as well. We did touch on Mike Tyson and Roy Jones. What, you don't want to talk about that one?
No, it is, right? You wouldn't have got bigger fans of those guys than me years ago, but they've had their time, man. It's the natural order of life. They've had their careers. They were great, great fighters. You know what I mean? Both of them, yeah, for different reasons. We loved watching them. But, you know, as I said, it's the cycle of life, man. They've had their time for them to move on. If anything, they're taking away the shine from these two guys. The whole boxing week should be focused on these two young guys. As you said yourself earlier, putting themselves on the line. They should both get massive credit, you know what I mean? Putting their careers on the line as well in this way, in a way that we've seen other fighters in the past would not do that, you know what I mean? So they deserve all the credit, all the plaudits, and they deserve the world's attention on them. It should not have to be shared by two 50-year-old guys, man, looking to make some money.
Another baffling decision. Another baffling decision was the fact that this is on pay-per-view for one. I did kind of expect it to be, but then BT bought the rights for it. So they've pushed for however many weeks that, you know, Dubois, Joyce, we're doing this for the fans, we're putting this on for you guys, no extra charge. And then you go and buy Tyson-Jones for $19.95. We have to pay for it to watch it. Now, I get it. It's a bumper night of boxing, regardless if you're a fan of the fight or not. It is still boxing. But that kind of baffled me a little bit. $19.95 for this. I mean, I think that threw a lot of people off when it's just an exhibition fight. But then, you know, Mayweather's fought in exhibition fights. That was on pay-per-view, wasn't it?
One word. Business. It's a show business, man.
And a lot of my casual friends, to be fair, are they're tuning in. So even though us hardcores are feeling a way about it, there is going to be a market for it. And apparently this fight broke. I saw it on Mike Tyson's Instagram. He said that this fight broke early pay-per-view revenue sales or something like that. That was his post. So there's a market for it, man.
Yes, you can.
It's just going to set off a worrying trend, though, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you can look at it and say it's like in tennis and back in the day with football, they used to have like what they call seniors tours. But you know, boxing cannot be compared to tennis in that way, man. Listen, I can understand some people, the curiosity factor, and they want to see how much both of them have got left. In particular, Tyson. You know, Tyson's always fascinated people, isn't he? I mean, the whole aura of Tyson seems to drive people crazy. They can't get enough of him. So I can understand that, but I'm just speaking as someone who's considering themselves a bit of a boxing connoisseur. I have to say I've got no real interest in the fight. I'd rather they not be doing it. Obviously, it's a free world. They can do what they want. But, you know, I'm very uncomfortable about watching guys in their mid-50s way, way past their best, punching each other in the head. I don't think it's a good look, man. I don't think it's good for the sport either, ultimately. You know what I mean? I'd much rather focus on the young guys who their careers are still in front of them. Give them the limelight. Give them the shine. You know what I mean? Make them be the focus of boxing. I think that this is an unnecessary and unwanted distraction, the Tyson-Roy Jones fight, in my opinion. But then, you know, everyone's got their own opinion. Everyone's got their own views on this sort of stuff. And one or two people I've spoken to said that even though that's a weird thing about it, so even though they're not in favour of the fight, they admitted to me that they are going to watch it. They did say, though, that they're not going to buy it, but they said that they will watch it. And I will probably end up taking a curious peek on YouTube when it's available for free. You know what I mean? I'll probably want to see how it ends or how it works out. I'm not sure if I'll watch all the rounds, but it's one of them, man. People are going to watch it. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, do you even have a prediction for this? I mean, what do you even predict? Like, you're not going on recent form, are you? Roy Jones was in the ring back in 2018. I think that was his last one, but he's taken some serious knockouts, man. You know what I mean? That's been concerning. And Mike Tyson ain't been in the ring for how many years now? What, 15 years? Something like that. So I get the feeling, I don't want to put a downer on this for anyone that's really looking forward to it. I don't want to be that person. But, I could see people being disappointed because a lot of the expectation is, yeah, these two, man, they're going in, what's going to happen? But then it's an exhibition fight. I think that needs to be underlined and, you know, highlighted for people to remember. It's not like Dubois and Joyce, where they're fighting for something and there's a belt. Well, there is a belt on the line for this one, but we won't talk about that. I think, yeah, people need to remember that it is just an exhibition. They are wearing head guards. They have got bigger gloves. It is only, I think it's 8 rounds or something like that. So it's not the sort of fight that a lot of people are anticipating. And I think that they may come out of it disappointed. They may think, oh, I'll pay £20 for that. I could see that being the scenario.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you're right. And me giving a prediction is not really necessary, really, because it's supposed to be an exhibition. So technically there's no winner and there's no loser. And let's be honest, a lot of people tuning into this, if they're being honest to themselves, what they're hoping to see is Tyson KO Roy Jones. Because
yeah, you have to be real, innit? Let's just be honest.
Yeah, that's what's carrying this whole thing. They're not tuning in to see the silky skills of Roy Jones, combination punching, the flashy footwork and the hand speed and stuff. Well, I say hand speed. I don't know how much hand speed he'll still have left at 50 odd years old.
He looked good on the pads.
Yeah, but being good on the pads, listen, man, I look good on the pads when I go to my gym, man. But it's never once like fooled me enough to say, yeah, I want to get back in the ring, man. You know what I mean? I've even done all right in sparring against guys half my age, but never once have I taken that headgear off and taken the gloves off and thought that I could beat that same guy in the ring. You know what I mean? Because it's a controlled spar in controlled environment. You know what I mean? So, but hey, man, I'm not Mike Tyson. I'm not Roy Jones. Like I said, these guys are ultra competitive guys. They were great, great fighters. And maybe they do genuinely think that they've got something to offer. But like I said before, I genuinely think that the vast majority of people who will be watching that fight, whether they watch it on the night or later, they're tuning in to see Mike Tyson deliver one of those explosive, highlight reel, one-punch knockouts. So then they can rule over it. And no doubt you'll get some silly people coming out.
Beat AJ, man.
Take Joshua, I reckon he could take Fury, which again is absolute nonsense. So, you know, but in answer to your question, I don't have a prediction because it's an exhibition fight and I really don't care. So, you know.
Sorry, both men come out with their faculties intact.
You know me, man. I like to keep it a hundo, man. I keep it real. I've just got no interest in it.
Let's just hope that both men come out with their faculties intact and, you know, healthy and whatever money they made, fair play to them. I'm not trying to count anybody's money, but look, fair play to them, man. But let's move on because there is, we've only got like, what, 23 minutes left. So
yeah, let's talk about some proper boxing. Yeah, come on.
We've got Danny Jacobs against Gabe Rosado this weekend. It's kind of like fell under the radar, man. Everybody's either talking about Dubois and Joyce or Mike Tyson against Roy Jones. But with Danny Jacobs, he's still a solid contender, still a good fighter. Gabe Rosado, you know what? Somebody asked me a question last week in my Q&A on my Instagram, and they said to me, who do you think has the most heart in boxing right now? And it's a tough question to answer because a lot of fighters have heart. I mean, you've got to have heart to just step in the ring, first of all. But Gabe Rosado came across as he was one of the first people I thought of because this guy, he's not on the level of Danny Jacobs boxing ability-wise or in terms of what he's achieved, but he's got a lot of heart, man. And he comes from the street, Gabe Rosado. You know, he's one of those guys, man. And I've got a lot of respect for him as a fighter and even as a man. But he has a lot of heart when he steps into that ring, man. And he's going to lay it all out against Danny Jacobs. Jacobs is the favorite. We saw them two had a confrontation, what was it, about a year ago when they were both fighting on the same card and they both went nose to nose. It may be an entertaining fight because both of them can be entertaining. But in terms of ability, levels and quality, Danny Jacobs is a level above Gabe Rosado, isn't he?
Yeah, you're right. He's easily the better boxer. He's the bigger puncher. But what I would say about this fight, I mean, it started off as a bit of a grudge match that you didn't think was really going to go anywhere. See a couple of them confrontations they had on YouTube, and they kept jarring back and forth at one another. I never thought it would actually materialize into a fight because I consider Danny Jacobs to be a kind of, like you said, levels above. But what I would say, man, what makes this watchable is the fact that not only you said is that Gabe Rosado has got so much heart, but he's very tough as well, man. I mean, I don't think. I know he got beaten quite badly by Golovkin and he got beaten up quite badly by David Lemieux, but he doesn't go over frequently, does he? If at all. And he's legendary tough. So it's not just a heart, man. He's tough. He's got that Philly fighters attitude where they come to bring it. And there's a natural rivalry in America that I'm sure a lot of your viewers will have known about with New York and Philly fighters. So there's an East Coast rivalry, man, that tends to bring out the best in fighters in America, in that part of the world. So, Yeah, man, I'm looking forward to this fight. I've got Danny Jacobs a clear favourite because, like you said earlier, in terms of boxing skill and ability, Daniel Jacobs is a level, maybe 2 levels above Gabe Rosado. Gabe Rosado hasn't had many wins recently either. But he genuinely, that's Gabe Rosado, doesn't like Danny Jacobs and vice versa. There's been a lot of trash talking going on. And it's kind of made for an interesting fight because although I don't think Gabe Rosado will win, but I think if he can stick around, he will make life a bit uncomfortable for Danny Jacobs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Danny Jacobs has been known to fade in fights and be a bit cautious with his gas tank. So Gabe Rosado will be thinking again, a bit like what we were saying with DUBOIS and JOYCE. Danny Jacobs is a fast starter as well, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Start fast. So Gabe will be thinking, if I can get through the early rounds, man, I'll try and put it on him late and see how that goes. Remember the fight he had with the Polish guy? Forget the Polish guy's name. War, man. You know what I mean? Earlier on, it looked like the Polish guy was going to get... He's a bald-headed Polish guy, middleweight.
I know, yeah. I can't remember. It was one of the first fights under Matchroom USA, wasn't it? It was one of the... Yeah.
And in that fight, man, he was under the cosh, Gabe was. But then he came back and he had a stirring into the fight and could have ended up winning it. So, yeah, he doesn't win often these days, man, but he's a real warrior and he will come to fight on Friday. So if he doesn't get blown away early, which I hope he doesn't, to be honest, then we see a quite competitive fight down the stretch.
Yeah, Jacobs got dropped by Sergio Mora, who doesn't punch very hard. You know, so he has shown he can be hit and hurt. Yeah,
he's shown vulnerabilities. I remember he got devastatingly knocked out by Dmitry Pirog.
Yep.
And when you suffer a knockout like that, trust me, fighters will always tend to be, they're never quite the same again because, you know what I mean, they will be slightly hesitant. They ain't going to want to get knocked out again. So it does make them a little bit more cautious. And certainly Danny Jacobs has been accused of that. When he fought Golovkin, even though I thought he edged the fight, but there's a lot of people out there that said he could have won more comfortably that night if he'd have really gone for broke. Now, the reason why he didn't go for broke is obviously because he knows that he's been KO'd in the past and Golovkin is a big puncher. Similarly with Canelo, in that fight, Danny did actually take some criticism in that fight. I've heard a few people, certainly on YouTube, criticizing him, saying that, you know, he never gave of himself the way he should have done because he was, again, he knew that Canelo can punch and he didn't want to...
I have to be honest, I expected a bit more too. I don't want to be like disrespectful, but I did. I thought Jacobs would put it out there a bit more, but maybe I was wrong to think that, but I'm not afraid to admit it.
I think it's natural if you've been knocked out and you've been hurt a few times, as Danny Jacobs has, you don't go all guns blazing unless you're silly. You know what I mean? He probably thought, I'll stay behind my jab and wait for my moments. That's whereas if you've got a chin that you can rely upon, like Triple G and Canelo and people like that, that's why they will they have no problem in bringing the fight to their opponents because they're backing their chin. They're thinking that, listen, I can afford to let you land 2 and I land 1 because you're probably not going to hurt me. And Danny Jacobs is not really like that. And I think that could have been because of that devastating loss he suffered earlier in his career. Don't get me wrong, he's still got the heart, he's still got the desire, but it's just that they will fight in a slightly different way. Lennox Lewis was the same. He was never quite the same guy after he suffered those 2 stoppages to Hazim Rahman and Oliver McCall. He was a bit more reticent, which made him slightly less exciting, although he was still an excellent fighter.
Yeah. There was always the case of
a little doubt in the back of your mind.
Say again, sorry?
There's always that little doubt in the back of their minds, fighters, if they've been chinned before. You will often see they're slightly more reticent. And there's nothing wrong with that, really. It's been sensible, isn't it?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, let's see, man. I think it'll be entertaining while it lasts, definitely. But yeah, the pick is Danny Jacobs for sure. Yeah, you can't overlook Rosado completely because that would be a mistake. But Danny Jacobs for me.
Yeah, let's be honest, man. It would be a huge shock if Rosado won. But that doesn't mean to say it won't be a good fight.
Yeah, summed up perfectly there. Well, let's talk about last weekend. Conor Benn was in action against Sebastian Formella. And going in, we were saying that, you know, that while I expected Conor Benn to win, and so did you, it was a good test for him. Sebastian Formella. His only previous defeat was against Sean Porter, which he lost on points, so he hadn't been stopped before. I think this was a very impressive performance from Conor Benn, man. I was very impressed. He went in there with the mindset, you know, I'm going to go in there and hurt this guy. And, yo, man, Formella was taking some licks in there, man. And he, to be fair to him, he took them. And he managed to last for the whole 10 rounds. And I have to give a lot of credit to him, man, because it could have been stopped at some points during that fight. I thought Conor Benn was landing with significant power at times. And he was able to find Formella quite regularly. So, yeah, credit to Conor Benn on a good performance. Credit to Sebastian Formella for going in there and taking that sort of punishment and hanging in there until the end. I got a lot of respect for him, man. The problem with Conor Benn, though, is even though he looked impressive, is the division that he's in. He's in one of the hardest divisions to really break through, which is welterweight. You look at even the domestic scene, you've got the likes of Congo, Josh Kelly. Then you manage to get through those. Then you've got the world level, like Errol Spence, Danny Garcia, Manny Pacquiao, Ugas, Sean Porter, Keith Thurman. How do you? It's a tough division for Conor Benn to break through. But summarize it for me. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, quite a bit like what you said there, man. I agree with most of what you said there. I mean, first and foremost, credit goes to both fighters. And I mean, both fighters, man. Both played their parts in what was a very entertaining fight.
Yeah.
To start with Conor Benn, wow, man. I must admit, he majorly impressed me because I didn't see him dominating from start to finish as much as he did. I didn't see that before the fight. I thought he would win, but I thought he might have to go through some tough moments. But he didn't at all. I think he pretty much won every round, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
For me, Formella a few times. I mean, what impressed me first and foremost was the jab. He had an excellent jab. His hand speed, his combination punching, his punch picking was great. He went to the head and body, varied it. Everything was good, man. I mean, there were a couple of moments in the mid to late rounds where he did get caught unnecessarily, I thought, where he kind of overcommitted. Maybe he thought he was going to get Formella out of there and let his hands go, and then he got caught with some counters. Apart from that, it was almost punch perfect, man. He really did impress me. And I have to say, man, that on that type of performance, you would have to give him a chance against Josh Kelly, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure, man. That is a very watchable fight right now. I think Josh Kelly's style would suit him more than Congo's style because Congo is taller and he's got the longer arms and, you know, he would seek to keep Conor Benn at bay with a jab. Chris Congo is very skilled like that. And don't get me wrong, Josh Kelly is very skilled in his own way as well, but I see that as a more enticing matchup. I think that he's the kind of fighter that Conor Benn could do well against. And you've seen Conor Benn calling him out. He was very vocal about it. He wants that fight. In fact, he said that is the only fight that interests him right now. And you can see it in his eyes, man, that he wants it.
Yeah, he wants it.
Times in there on Saturday, I'm not going to, I don't want to lavish him with too much praise. But there were times in there on Saturday that he did resemble his old man in there, man, back in the day. I did get
that is big praise.
And so, yeah, so there's no higher praise than that, man. You know,
is Josh Kelly dismissive of Conor Benn?
In the boxing sense, he's actually quite spiteful, Conor Benn, man. You know what I mean? With those punches, he was digging those punches in. I mean, now that we haven't got the crowds in, you can actually hear the shots going. And yeah, man, he was punching with some venom. Okay, he didn't get the guy out of there, but that's testament to how tough.
That's testament to Formella.
Yeah. I mean, Sean Porter couldn't do nothing with him. And I saw that Sean Porter fight, and I thought that Conor Benn beat him much more convincingly than Sean Porter did.
Yeah, so do I.
They both won most of the rounds. But Conor really did stick it on it. And I think that Formella's got world-class, he may not be a world-class fighter, but he's got world-class chin and world-class toughness. Because if he didn't, he would have been out of there, man. I could think of many welterweights in the world that Conor would have stopped that night. Yeah. So fair play to him, man. Excellent performance.
Is Josh Kelly dismissive of Conor Benn? And the reason why I say that is because after the fight, he tweeted, you know, he's got a tough fight of his own against Avanesyan. And in the tweet, he was just saying, look, I'm focused on my fight, which is the right thing to say and do, of course, if you've got a fight coming up. To me, it just felt like, you know, he's just like, look, I'm focusing on a fighter. He's better than Conor Benn. I'm worried about this. Like, that fight will happen whenever. Does he have a point in what he's saying there? Because David Abenisian he is like well known to boxing fans like ourselves, and he is a good fighter. Do you think that Josh Kelly is dismissing Conor Benn, and do you think that that would be a detriment towards him if they do fight?
No, not really. I mean, if I was Josh Kelly, I probably would have said similar things, because you got to remember that Josh Kelly is probably a little bit more advanced in it. Well, he is. I mean, he's fighting for a version of the title against David Abenisian, who incidentally is a good fighter himself. So yeah, he's got more than enough to worry about, you know what I mean? So he's got to be focusing his energies on what will be a very competitive fight as well. So I can understand him taking that standpoint. And let's face it as well, he is the hunted in the Conor Benn fight. So that the dynamic is slightly different. He's hunting Abenisian for a title, but with Conor Benn's not really bringing much to the table other than his name and his current standing in the game. Yeah. So it's Kelly that's seen to be a little bit more advanced at this time. He's the one that's kind of looking over his shoulder at Conor Benn. So you can see why he's taken that attitude. I don't have no issue with that. Obviously, if the fight then does get made, then he will have to take Conor Benn very, very seriously indeed, because that will be a serious challenge that he has to overcome. But on that fight as well, sometimes, when you're in boxing and, you hear rumors and stuff. And one of the rumors I'd heard about Josh Kelly is that whilst he may be very skillful, is that he can be a bit of a front runner. And this is something that I had heard about him from the amateurs, that he can look devastating and very skillful and very flashy. But sometimes, when the other fighter closes the space down and makes more of a fight of it, he's less impressive. So people don't get it twisted. I'm not saying that Josh Kelly doesn't have heart. So he wouldn't have achieved all he had done in boxing, being a top amateur and all the rest of it, if he didn't have heart. But what I'm saying is that certain types of fighters do well in certain types of fights. And the common consensus from the people I've spoken to in boxing seems to be that Josh Kelly likes a bit more space to work, and he likes to fight at his own pace. But when people close that distance and make him fight at a pace that he's not too familiar with, and he can get quite uncomfortable with it. And I think that's what Conor Benn is hinting at, because he's been calling out Kelly for a long time now. So he obviously thinks he's got the style and the personality and the skills to beat him. Or if not the skills, he thinks he's got the physical requirements to make it really rough and tough for Josh Kelly. And he thinks he would, if the fight got there, he would prevail. So I think that's where he's getting at, actually.
It kind of reminds me, and listen, this is no comparison in terms of personality, styles, or the level of fighter, but just the fact that, remember back when Holyfield and Tyson fought? Before then, obviously, Tyson was the big favorite, but Holyfield was literally, he was obsessed with Tyson before they fought. He was calling him out. He wanted Tyson. That was the fight that he was really zeroing in on, even though people thought he was going to lose. And I see that sort of situation here where Conor Benn is zeroing in on Josh Kelly. That's all he wants. It's almost like an obsession.
That's what I'm saying about Josh Kelly is the hunted one right now.
Yeah.
And Conor Benn is the hunter. And you've always got to be careful of that dynamic, because if you're being hunted by somebody, that means that they genuinely believe that they can beat you. They think they've seen something. But you, as the hunted, you need to be on your guard with that guy.
Yeah.
You need to take it very seriously. Now, what I said is that Josh Kelly's got his hands full at the moment. He's got a big fight coming up. So obviously he's got to focus on that. But down the line, man, that would make for a very good fight.
Yeah.
Very good fight, you know what I mean? And I wouldn't write Conor Benn out. I think you'd have to make Kelly the favourite, because considerable amateur experience, and he has looked good. Okay, he had that fight against Ray Robinson that I personally thought he lost that fight. But that could have been just a bad day at the office.
And make him a better fighter as well.
We always say on this show, styles make fights. Ray Robinson's style is completely different to Conor Benn's. So you can't look at that fight and say, yeah, that's the reason why Conor Benn would beat him, because you look at how he fought with Ray Robinson. But you've seen how energized every time Conor Benn's interviewed these days. All he seems to talk about is Kelly. He's almost obsessed with it. That tells me
he is
something there, that he thinks he can exploit. And like I said, there are people I've spoken to in the trade who said that Kelly is good when he's been able to operate from a certain level. When the distance gets closed down and he's forced to fight, he becomes less comfortable. So we'll see.
We'll see, yeah. Well, listen, man, that kind of brings an end to the show, man. We've only got like a couple minutes left, but I wanted to kind of speak on like the Crawford-Spence situation, but we ain't really got enough time. It was just the fact, if I just get one comment on you from that, it's just that it's not looking good in terms of that fight happening. Well, for me, from some of the things I've seen in the media, where now Spence was saying that he believes it's 60-40 or nothing. Then Crawford's like, well, actually, I should be 60-40 or nothing. And it's kind of hitting like a roadblock. Obviously, we've got Crawford with his promotional issues with Top Rank. Errol Spence due to fight next weekend against Danny Garcia. A bit frustrating for me, man. I'm not going to lie. This is a fight I want to see. And this is the problem with boxing, man. The politics and everything that's going on. Like, we just want to see these guys fight. Yeah. And I'm worried now that if they don't fight next year and it's pushed back to like 2022 or whenever, Crawford's going to be 35 years old. You know, so that the longer we wait for it to happen, the more it favors Errol Spence. And I don't have a horse in the race, but I'm just saying, let's capitalize on it now. But quickly before we sign out, I've only got a couple of minutes. What's your thoughts on that before we go?
Well, my first thoughts on that is to add a cautionary tale. I hear what you're saying, but what I would say to you and millions of other boxing fans across the world is, let's see how Errol Spence gets on against Danny Garcia. Because make no mistake, man, this is a very competitive fight.
Garcia looks motivated.
Yeah, he looks very, again, it's that hunted thing, that hunted syndrome we spoke about. Danny Garcia has said that he fancies this fight. He said he fancies it even more since Errol Spence had the car crash, because he's always viewed Errol Spence as quite hittable. And when you're a puncher and you think that you're able to hit them, a bit like DUBOIS and JOYCE, he thinks JOYCE is hittable. So that's how Garcia looks at Errol Spence. He thinks, listen, man, this guy, he's a good boxer, very capable, but he's very hittable. And if I catch him, I can hurt him. And I do believe that Danny Garcia has a chance in this fight. So I think what we need to do is wait and see how Errol Spence gets on with this fight. If he comes through it, even if he comes through it, how good does he look? You know what I mean? We've got to wait for that to transpire first, and then we can see where we go with the, you know, A side, B side, all that nonsense that
side of the street, all of this stuff, man.
Winds me up, man. You know what I mean? Listen, at the end of the day, I've still got Terence Crawford as my pound for pound #1 fighter. And if him and Errol Spence were to fight tomorrow, then I would be leaning towards Crawford. That's just my opinion. But I want to see how Errol Spence looks, because so far in his career, he's looked excellent. But you know what I mean? There are questions out there that still need to be answered. He's got a very stiff opponent coming up in the form of Danny Garcia. Let's see how he gets on. Let's see if he can come through, and then we can start talking about the Crawford fight.
Well, let's hold on our previews until next week. We can delve deep into that next week. That's another fantastic fight that we're looking forward to.
I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah. But listen, man, we come to the end of the show. Dad, as always, like to thank you for jumping on, giving us some of your knowledge, man. A lot of people that watch this show do actually say, man, how much knowledge you have, and you know they just love watching it for you. So yeah, thank you for coming on. And Fan Talk, I'm going to be on Fan Talk straight after DUBOIS and JOYCE. Hopefully, if you're free, you can jump on as well, just to give you a thought. Right?
Listen, as I've said on this show before, boxing is one of my passions. I grew up watching and following boxing. I got that from my dad. Hopefully I'll pass that on to you. And it's a passion. And I also find talking about boxing is cathartic for me, you know what I mean? Helps me to alleviate some of the other stresses and so forth going on in the world right now. So yeah, man, I love it. Yeah, and I'm glad that people who watch it enjoy it as well. So yeah, man, win-win situation for me.
Thank you very much, man. And listen, I'll be on Fan Talk straight after the fight, as I said. I'll get my dad on there to give his quick views on the fight as well as speaking to you guys. Anybody that wants to jump on Fan Talk, leave a note in the comment section below, and I'll make sure that you guys get a link to the stream. We'll have a quick chat about the fight, a bit of fan cams going on there. So listen, look forward to it. You know, we can't really gather people around, but just order your food, do what you need to do, whatever you like to do before a big fight. And let's just enjoy it, man. Let's just enjoy it. I'm really looking forward to it. And this is what it's all about. This is what boxing is all about. So, enjoy the weekend, guys, and we'll catch you guys in the next video.
Tap in, man. Tap in.